every single games that I go to. It feels amazing that we've managed to play a part in their recovery.
To royal news now, Prince Harry is reportedly going to offer an invite to the royal family for the 2027 Invictus Games, which could see a long-awaited reunion for the Duke of Sussex and his family. It's been reported that Prince Harry is keen to reconcile with King Charles.
Prince Harry's new Netflix documentary series, Heart of Invictus, has been labelled bland by some critics. Others say it's a great way to see Harry at his finest, at his most natural.
It happened in a heartbeat. Graham Norton flashed his mischievous grin, dropped a throwaway line. Invictus? Hard to captain the games when you're still waiting on Netflix approval. Harry and the BBC audience erupted. The roar wasn't just amusement, it was relief. The collective exhale of a country that had finally decided it was safe to laugh at the prince who once walked behind his mother's coffin. Before the credits rolled, the clip ricocheted across social feeds. Breakfast hosts replayed it with thinly disguised delight, and California Duke replaced Prince Harry in headline after headline. 5,000 miles away in Montecito, staff say Harry watched the moment detonate on his phone, face draining to crimson before a crystal glass arced through the air and shattered against a wall lined with Invictus medals. He raged that Norton was mocking wounded warriors, but the deeper wound was personal. A decade of carefully curated purpose reduced to a punchline in 9 seconds. That single laugh has set off a chain reaction, veterans, wondering if he'll even show up in 2027. Sponsors freezing payments, King Charles retreating into icy silence, Meghan vanishing from sight, and Netflix whispering about appearance clauses. Over the next 18 minutes, we'll chart every aftershock, from the backstage glass smash to a palace practicing presence over performance, from jittery donors to a games now rehearsing how to march on without its founder. The countdown has begun, and the next move will decide whether Prince Harry can reclaim the crown of credibility or watches Invictus and his legacy crumble meme by meme.
Down solo Tuesday afternoon to celebrate a decade of the Invictus Games he helped to create.
It's our birthday at Invictus Games Foundation, and we're all very excited and thrilled.
Thursday night on the BBC, Graham Norton leaned forward, grin razor sharp, and dropped the line that detonated a decade of Sussex brand building. For a split moment, there was a hush as the audience processed the punch. Then a wave of laughter rolled through the studio like artillery fire. Viewers at home clipped the segment and blasted it across social platforms. Within half an hour, hashtags such as Prince of Punchlines and Norton Said What We Think were trending from Manchester to Melbourne, while TikTok edits synced Harry's teary Oprah soundbites to circus music. Even normally decorous breakfast anchors replayed the gag with telltale smirks. If Graham Norton was openly lampooning the prince, mainstream Britain had finally decided it was safe to laugh. The speed of the viral surge told its own story. Norton isn't a tabloid, shock jock, or a royal basher. He's the family-friendly funny man who keeps national treasures comfortable on a red couch. When he throws shade, it registers as cultural consensus, not gutter snark. Headlines the next morning swapped Prince Harry for California Duke, a nickname dripping with irony.
The Sussexes continue to follow their own path in California.
The line between mischievous banter and reputational freefall had been crossed, and Invictus, the project that once rebranded Harry as Soldier Saint, was suddenly the stick beating him down. While the clip raced around the globe, the mood backstage curdled. Aide after aide has since confirmed the same sequence. Harry's phone lit up with the trending footage. A senior staffer tried to joke that they could spin it. The prince went crimson, slammed a fist onto a sideboard, and barked that Norton was disgracing his veterans. Seconds later, a crystal tumbler flew, burst against the plaster, and drenched a framed Invictus photo in whiskey. For 3 long minutes, no one moved. One junior assistant actually started to cry before an equerry coaxed Harry toward a car. The tirade didn't stay private. A studio runner texted a friend, and by midnight, the Daily Mail was pushing alerts about a glass smash fury. By dawn, sympathetic veteran forums were expressing disappointment, while corporate sponsors of Invictus were already emailing organizers for reassurance. Was the founder still committed to 2027?
To royal news now, Prince Harry is reportedly going to offer an invite to the royal family for the 2027 Invictus Games, which could see a long-awaited reunion for the Duke of Sussex and his family. It's been reported that Prince Harry is keen to reconcile with King Charles.
Inside Montecito, the comms team launched crisis Zooms, drafting and discarding statements at warp speed. Should Harry condemn Norton for belittling troops and risk looking thin-skinned? Laugh it off and validate the joke? Pivot to Invictus fundraising numbers and remind everyone that he might skip Whistler altogether?
It's about soldiers who've served their country very, very well, and as a result have had some dreadful injuries. Where I depart from liking it a lot and Harry's involvement is when he turns up to be moaning Minnie again.
No consensus emerged, only a deafening silence that let the meme storm rage unchecked. The meltdown had exposed a truth more damaging than any tabloids could print. The temper that once felt charmingly rebellious now threatens the very mission Harry claims is sacred. And out on the internet, the roar of laughter was morphing into a verdict. If the prince himself can't hold his composure, why should anyone keep faith in his games? By sunrise, the focus had shifted from the joke to its collateral damage. Invictus itself. A decade ago, the games crowned Harry a new kind of royal hero. Boots muddy, heart on his sleeve, shoulder to shoulder with amputees and PTSD survivors.
Stark difference from the first Invictus Games 10 years ago. But Harry always focused on the mission of the
Now, veterans' WhatsApp groups buzzed with a harsher view. They'd watched their founder ghost medal ceremonies last year, seen sponsorship Zooms postponed, and heard rumors he still hadn't signed the formal commitment letter for 2027. After Norton's quip, they no longer whispered, they vented. One double amputee rower wrote on X that Harry used our scars as a spotlight, then vanished the minute the beam got hot. Behind the scenes, the anxiety was measurable. A German sportswear giant quietly froze a 7-figure kit contract until it could verify executive attendance. A North American telecom conglomerate wanted written guarantees the prince would appear on site in Whistler before wiring another tranche of funding. Even local organizing committees began wargaming Plan B scenarios, new keynote speakers, rebranded messaging that downplays the royal founder, celebrity veterans flown in to keep cameras interested. What stings most for the athletes is the symbolism. Invictus was supposed to show that wounds don't end lives, that service, camaraderie, and grit can rebuild an identity. When the man who preached that gospel hesitates to board the plane, it undercuts every podium speech and locker room pep talk. And so, Norton's dig didn't merely lampoon a prince, it stripped bare a mission now wobbling on the absence of its own architect. While Montecito scrambled, Buckingham Palace settled into frosty stillness, the royal equivalent of a shrug. Courtiers leaked nothing, issued nothing, not even the perfunctory. No comment. The quiet was strategic, almost surgical. Let the runaway duke twist in the wind he'd conjured. King Charles, battling illness yet still front and center at a Buckingham garden party that same week, was photographed laughing with wounded Gurkhas. He hadn't spoken a syllable about Harry, but the optics said everything. Across town, Prince William hosted veterans from the Afghan campaign at Kensington. Sleeves rolled halfway, pint in hand, eyes locked on each guest. No cameras were allowed inside, but a single still image released later captured the heir apparent listening, head bowed, expression intent. The photo went viral beside clips of Harry storming out of studios and skulking behind blacked-out car windows. Comment sections filled in the subtext. One brother shows up, the other shows off. Royal aides have a new term for the difference: presence over performance. Internally, they've reordered briefing papers so that William's engagements top the daily press grid while Harry items, if they appear at all, fall under external personalities. The subliminal message to the public is glacial but clear. The future is on duty. The sideshow is on its own. With each day, Harry delays confirming Invictus 2027, that glacier inches forward. If it reaches the games before he does, freezing sponsorships, numbing public faith, no amount of memoirs, podcasts, or Netflix spin can thaw it. And Buckingham, teacups clinking in the hush, seems perfectly content to watch the ice extend. Back in California, the Sussex compound felt less like a coastal sanctuary and more like mission control in a disaster movie. Staff were summoned to the kitchen island at dawn. No breakfast, just triple-shot lattes and laptops glowing red with Google alerts. One comms aide tried to argue the Norton clip would pass within a news cycle. Another countered that the Invictus board was already requesting an emergency Zoom. Each hour brought another blow. German tabloids reprinting the glass, smash story, a Canadian sports channel polling viewers on whether Harry should be replaced as Games patron, a Hollywood trade mag hinting Netflix had added founder participation clauses to its Invictus contracts. Harry stalked the hallway refreshing headlines, muttering that he'd been set up by the BBC. A senior publicist suggested issuing a light-hearted tweet praising Graham Norton's wit. Lean into the ribbing and own it. The prince shot her a glare, said nothing, and disappeared into his office. 20 minutes later, someone heard a door slam and the PR draft landed in digital purgatory alongside half a dozen abandoned statements. By mid-afternoon, the mood had curdled from frantic to fatalistic. No one could decide whether the next move was an Oprah-style sit-down, a deeply earnest Instagram video, or total silence. Each option risked amplifying the story in a different way. Joke too much and the veterans feel cheapened. Get too serious and you confirm the wound. Say nothing and the memes keep writing themselves. It was the first time the Montecito team realized there might be no spin robust enough to reverse a punchline that resonated precisely because it felt true. While Harry's strategists looped themselves in circles, the real fallout hit the accounts department. A Dutch tech company quietly paused its wire for adaptive cycling equipment until executive visibility could be reconfirmed. A United States beverage giant requested an addendum. If Harry failed to attend 2027 medal ceremonies, a six-figure sponsorship fee would revert to charity, not the Invictus Foundation. Even local governments in British Columbia hinted that provincial grants depended on confirmation the Games' founder would stand on Canadian soil, not tell his story from a Netflix soundstage. Athletes felt the tremors first. Training WhatsApp groups buzzed with rumors that marquee sports might be trimmed to save cash. One wheelchair rugby captain wrote that he'd turned down a commercial speaking tour to focus on the games. And now they're asking if we can do a Zoom pep talk instead of a pre-event camp. Nobody blamed the organizers. They blamed the vacuum where Harry's leadership used to be. For 10 years, his presence had pulled open wallets and press coverage. His silence now closed doors with equal force. Yet the cruel irony for veterans was obvious. The man who'd rallied them to ignore phantom pains and phantom limbs was suddenly a phantom himself. Some still held out hope he'd appear, apologize, and re-anchor the mission. Others were already bracing for a ceremony where a substitute host waves from the podium and the founder's chair sits conspicuously empty. An unspoken monument to the moment a single joke crystallized an emperor has no clothes suspicion the public had nursed for years. While Montecito scrambled and London icily ignored, Meghan Markle stayed invisible, an absence so deliberate it felt choreographed. No podcast drop, no lifestyle brand teaser, not even a paparazzi stroll to the farmer's market. Insiders insist she had warned Harry a UK appearance would reopen the war, and now she was proving the point by letting him weather the barrage alone. Friends say she spent the weekend on back-to-back Zooms with brand strategists, checking Orchard product demo timelines and gauging US sentiment. The verdict: distance equals safety. That silence, though, screamed on both sides of the Atlantic. Veterans remembered her VIP speeches at past games and wondered why the self-styled commander of compassion couldn't manage a 280-character tweet defending the cause. Royal commentators noticed the optics, too. Each day she kept out of frame carved a clearer divide between Sussex Inc. and the mission Harry once claimed was their shared purpose. To some observers, it looked ruthless. To others, unmistakably pragmatic. If Invictus collapses, it will collapse on his shoulders, not hers, and the American Riviera orchard jars will still shine on pristine marble countertops, unsullied by military fallout. While Harry's world tilted, Prince William moved with the steady cadence of a metronome. That same week, he opened a homelessness initiative in Sheffield, accepted a regiment's new colors at Windsor, and slipped into an unpublicized visit with Afghan veterans at a rehab center. No cameras captured sound bites. A single palace photographer released one brooding black and white frame of William listening, head bowed, palms clasped. The image rocketed around news sites precisely because it looked nothing like a Netflix still. There was no glare of production lights, just a future king doing the work. Courtiers quietly admit the timing is no accident. They've adopted a phrase, presence over performance, and every public event now reinforces it. William shows up, the photographers get a restrained shot, and Britain sees a royal who serves rather than sells. Pollsters clock the shift. His approval climbs each month. Harry's plummets. Catherine's poised warmth amplifies the effect, and suddenly the line of succession feels both modern and immutable. None of this requires palace spin doctors to attack Harry. They simply leave a vacuum around him and let comparison do the rest. When William steps onto parade ground tarmac as Invictus sponsors waver, the contrast is almost cruel. One heir doesn't need a documentary crew to validate his purpose, the other seems lost without one. And in a monarchy that trades on longevity, that difference is more powerful than any late-night joke, because the laughter fades, but the crown and the memory of who kept faith with duty endures. Pollsters didn't need a week to measure the temperature. By Monday morning, a flash YouGov survey showed nearly 3/4 of Britons no no longer believed Harry should represent injured service members on any official platform until he sorts himself out. The phrasing was brutally plain, the majority even higher among military families. What began as a quip on a talk show couch had crystallized a sentiment that had been building for years: exhaustion. Late-night hosts spun fresh monologues. TikTok creators stitched Graham Norton's line to Harry's Oprah sobs, and newspaper columnists who once tiptoed around the Duke now competed to coin the wittiest new nickname. Even supportive outlets slipped from Prince Harry to the California Duke, a title that sounded less like nobility and more like a minor league mascot. All the while, Netflix executives refreshed view count dashboards with sinking stomachs. Heart of Invictus had been sold internally as a prestige tentpole, the series that would anchor the Sussex partnership in credibility. Instead, the analytics showed a sharp spike on premiere night, followed by a limp tail, and now the founder's public commitment to 2027 was in question. One insider admitted the streamer had inserted a new clause: if Harry failed to appear in Whistler or Vancouver, final payment milestones could be withheld. In the old royal world, you could weather scandal by going silent. In the algorithm economy, silence is simply empty ad inventory, and that costs real money. Meghan could protect her brand by vanishing. William could strengthen his by standing still. But Harry's multi-million-dollar content machine needed him on camera looking heroic. Each day he didn't deliver, another contract quivered. Yet nothing stung like the slow desertion of the veterans themselves. WhatsApp groups that once buzzed with awe at Harry's speeches now filled with black humor memes. One paraplegic rower posted a selfie in team kit captioned, "Still training even if the boss ghosts." It garnered more likes than the official Invictus account's last 3 posts combined. The games would go on. Wounded warriors always do, but for the first time they were preparing to carry the torch without the man who lit it. By the end of the week, Montecito's manic energy fell into a hush that felt like resignation. Advisors had mapped every option onto the kitchen whiteboard and erased them until only 2 stark sentences remained: show up or fade out. Show up means flying to London, shaking hands with the father he keeps suing, staring down journalists who will ask the question he dreads most: were you ever really committed? It means landing in Canada next winter, strapping on a puffer jacket with Invictus patches, and accepting that the games are bigger than his ego or his brand. It means no camera crews dictating angles, no Netflix directors shouting for retakes, just the raw, uncomfortable work of leadership. Fade out is easier in the moment. Stay in California, blame logistics, release a heartfelt statement about focusing on family, maybe drop a Spotify special called Service. The sponsors will grumble but find replacement figureheads. The veterans will salute each other and get on with competing. And the royal family will pour another cup of Darjeeling and note privately that the boy finally chose his path for good. Fade out means the world moves on without him, the crown grows shinier on his brother's brow, and Invictus becomes a line in a Wikipedia entry rather than a living legacy. There will still be podcasts, lifestyle launches, perhaps a scripted series. There just won't be a second act of dignity. Which road he takes will write the epilogue to the fairy tale that once captivated the planet. A decade ago, the sight of Prince Harry laughing with double amputees on a sun-drenched track felt like monarchy reinvented. Less pomp, more purpose. Now the sight the public remembers is a glass breaking against a wall because a comedian made a joke and, for the first time, everyone laughed. The next Invictus Games clock is already ticking. Registration forms are out, sponsorship checks are on hold, and stadium banners wait to be printed. All that's missing is the signature of the founder, the signature of the soldier, prince who must decide whether to reclaim the mission or watch it sail without him. History has room for both kinds of royals, the ones who walked away and the ones who came back, but it rarely forgives hesitation. In the end, Graham Norton's 9-second dig didn't damage Invictus. It simply flashed a spotlight on the fracture. The real question isn't whether the world will show up for the games. It always does. The question is whether Prince Harry will show up for the world he promised to serve, or whether the empty chair at center stage will become the lasting symbol of a crown and a cause he chose to leave behind. And that's a wrap! If today's scoop had you raising an eyebrow or two, tap that like button to let us know. Got a hot take or inside tea? Drop it in the comments so the whole crew can weigh in. Not part of the fam yet? Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell because the next twist is always one upload away.